Welcome everyone. This video we're going to be talking about adding property lines to a project. Now specifically, we're going to be looking at the two different ways. One way to add property lines is by using sketch tools and basically just drawing the property line out using lines and arcs and things like that. Just basically drawing it from scratch. The second way is using distance and bearing, where you actually type in, the length of a segment of property line, and then you put in the coordinate system or the bearing as to the direction that the property line is going to be moving in. So I've got on the screen a fairly simple site plan, and I've got the property lines already traced out. This is a CAD file. You can see I can select the whole thing. So it's just a CAD file. And the property lines are already traced out. Because they're already traced out, it makes creating the property lines using the sketch mode incredibly easy. So I can just go to the Massing and Site tab, and there's a property line tool here. Select the property line tool, and again, you can create by distance and bearing or just by sketching. So we're going to start by sketching because, well, it's pretty easy. Do it by sketching, and we've got all of our draw tools here, so I can just draw a line from point to point, and it should snap to the various endpoints and things like that, but you'll find sometimes it's not going to snap really nicely. So you might have to readjust your snap settings, things like that, but I just cancel out of the sketch mode for a second. It's a lot easier if you just go again to the property line tool by sketching. It's a lot easier if you use the pick lines tool. Pick lines tool is probably one of my favorite things. And I can literally just click on the existing CAD lines because it will actually pick them independently. And then hit the check mark when you're done in sketch mode. And I've just created property lines. You can't really see them because the CAD file's in the way, so I'm just going to shift the CAD file out of the way there. And there are my property lines. And then I can go and put in some, annotations as for the distances and bearings. Now there is one thing, I'm just going to undo that move for a second. You usually want to adjust your north settings before you put in your property lines. Now this doesn't always happen. If I switch to the True North view, you can see that True North is straight up and down. If I switch to Project North and I now go to the Manage tab and I rotate my Project North to align to any of my building lines, okay, it worked fine. Sometimes when I've done this in the past, the property lines haven't rotated properly for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. This time it seemed to work. So just be aware of that. If you put your property lines in and you need to rotate your project north, just be aware when you're rotating your project north, make sure that the property lines didn't rotate weirdly. Because it has happened to me on a number of occasions. I'm not exactly sure what's causing it. Clearly it didn't just happen now, so I'm not entirely sure the reasoning behind it. The next thing is the second way. I'm just going to grab those property lines, and they move as a full unit, so you can just move them over. I'm just going to move them out of the way for a second, and I'm going to do the second set of property lines using distance and bearing. I'm just going to switch back to my True North view here for a second, and I can sort of see what the different values are here. The CAD file's a little rough to read, but I'm pretty sure I can read all the values for that, or at least close enough to distinguish what they are. Just going to zoom in on some of them. So 15801. 58, that's a 1629. I just want to be sure what the numbers are, just so that I know. And that one's a 56. Okay, it's just some of the 6s are looking like 8s when I zoom out a bit. So distance and bearing for property lines is also pretty straightforward and pretty easy. It's a little more complicated than the sketch mode, obviously. So I go to property line tool, create by entering distances and bearings. And you need to pick wherever you're going to start. So I'm going to start at this corner here. And I'm just going to go around clockwise. So my first distance is 15.801. And I'm going to type in the M for meters. I believe my project units are millimeters in my template, so I just want to make sure. And the line starts here and it's going north 46 degrees, 41 minutes, 36 seconds east. So north, and under the bearing, we just type in 46 space 41 space 36. And it will fill in the symbols for us automatically, and east. So that's my first line. And then I can insert a new line. 52.415 meters. And this one's also going to the northeast because it's starting here. I'm just continuing sort of a chain around the perimeter. So it's going to be north 85 space 58 space 7 east. Okay, and it's a line also. And then let's move that out of the way a bit. Insert another line, and we've got 81.887 meters. And again, make sure you're aware of your units. My project's set to millimeters, but because I'm typing in the value in meters, I have to put the unit. If I were to type in, instead of 81.887, if I type in 81887, I don't have to put the units in because millimeters are my default unit. And now the property line here, it's saying it's going from here, it's southeast, so the bearings are correct. So I just change that to south. And 11 space, looks like a 16. I could be off on that. I'm not sure if that's a 16 or an 18. So I could hit OK and just double check. Yeah, it is a 16. And I could actually place the property lines down. They don't form a closed loop, so I can actually come back in. I'm just going to zoom in on these last two bearings a little bit here. If I just double click on it, double clicking doesn't seem to open up the properties, but I can select it and open up the editing table that way. So double clicking won't open up the editing table. For some reason I thought it did. But you can select, again, I'm just going to cancel that and show you one more time. You can select the property lines and then just go to edit table. If it was a sketch based, like this one, I could then go edit sketch. You'll also notice that in the sketch based one, if I go edit table, it'll actually convert my sketch based property lines to a table, in which case I will lose all of the attachments it has from when it traced out. But it will give me all the proper distances and bearings for that site. So I'm just going to say no to that for now. Let me just zoom back in here again. Grab this property line and edit the table. And I can continue on. So I'm going to insert another line. So this one is 60 meters. And you'll see the bearing on this is saying north 77.13.3. But because I'm starting at this point and going the other way, I do have to reverse the distance or the direction. The bearings, the 77.13 space 3, those values actually stay the same. I just have to change the direction that the line's moving. So instead of going northeast, it's going southwest. But these values all stay the same. It is completely the opposite, just opposite directions. That's the only thing you need to change in those situations. I'm going to insert one last line here for the last one. This is 81.873 meters. And it is going northwest, so north 15 space 3 space 56 west. And I can hit OK here. Sometimes if it doesn't form a closed loop for whatever reason, some of the bearings are off or it's been rounded a little weird, you might want to hit this add line to close. Because mine's actually forming a closed loop, I don't need to do that. So I can hit OK. And I'll just move the CAD file out of the way again. You can see I have the site plan in place using distances and bearings. So those are the two ways that you create your property lines. And again, you can edit either of them. Again, once it's converted to a table, you can't make it a sketch anymore. But when it's a table, you can edit the table and adjust any of the values that are necessary. So if you have one of the lines actually go in the wrong direction or something, you can come in here and just quickly tweak it if needed. So that is creating property lines in Revit. I hope it helps you guys, and I will talk to you in the next video.